Live from a Christchurch edition of the Export Beer Garden Studios, this is the agenda for Monday the 26th of February.
The Agenda, an alternative commentary collective podcast.
A little later today because, as I mentioned, I am coming to you live and direct from Christchurch. Joining me out of the Auckland ACC studio where he has not left in the last 72 hours is Joe Durie. G'day, Joe. How are you getting on?
G'day, Manaia. God, it's good to hear your voice. No, I have left. I had to move the caravan from where it lives out in Ellerslie to Eden Park for the Super Bash, which, unfortunately, due to inclement weather up here, has been postponed.
Oh, great.
So it's now on Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Yeah, good use of my time to spend that morning moving that shit around. But yeah, Wednesday night for the Super Bash now. So if you've got tickets to that, Tic-Tac will be in touch with you to tell you all those details. So don't turn up there tomorrow, Wednesday.
Sounds like I dodged the worst of the weather over the weekend. But because I am down here in Christchurch I was down here for a stag do, I didn't see a whole lot of rugby or cricket across the weekend, so I had a good opportunity to try and catch up today. But Joe, I know you were in the studio for both of the Black Caps games across the weekend, and Aussie sweeped the Chapel Hadley series 3-0 in a truncated T20 at Eden Park. That one yesterday was a bit of a shit show. For the casual fan, how does the ACC handle a rain delay? What happens behind the scenes when a game's being stopped and started like that?
There's two approaches. There's either drink heavily like Lee Hart does. So I think he pounded through about 36 beers yesterday in the rain delay, and kept coming back on and getting amongst his Export Ultras. Or you take the approach of Jason Hoyt, who, for a man who says he loves cricket and loves nothing else but watching cricket, he really hates anything to do with working around doing cricket commentary. Whoa, this is taking too long. What are they doing? God, just get on with it. So the two different approaches there. I tend to sit in the middle of the Lee Hart, drink a few beers, and also swear at the TV like Jason Hoyt.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot that you can do about it as a viewer. It is one of the more frustrating things. I feel like, I don't know, maybe we need to look into, we've talked a lot about rain delays, whether you nominate your rain delay bowler. So like instead of stopping the game, you just have one guy out there as the wet weather specialist. Maybe he's got extra long sprigs, or maybe he's got knees that he doesn't care if he blows them out. But we just say, look, bugger it, we're going to play on. And both teams just agree to it and just get a result out of it. But the game itself, even when we did get going, Phillips was all at sea. He just about let a maiden through in one of the overs. It just looked like the Aussies were a bit of a cut above, and Santner sort of said that after the game as well. Do you think that Aussies are just still that much further ahead of us? Like, do we get too excited about thrashing places like Bangladesh and then think, well, hang on, we're actually one of the top flight teams? And then when Aussie comes over, did they just remind us that they are a step above us?
Yeah, it's Big Brother comes home, and you think you've been having a good time beating up on your mates out the backyard, and then Big Brother comes home and just absolutely goes to town on you and beats the crap out of you. It's a little bit frustrating as a Black Caps fan because we don't get to play Australia a lot. And you kind of see why, because every time we do go up against them, we just get... we don't show up, and we're terrible. And so if you're them, you're like, oh, you're going to go play these losers again. We're just going to, it's no point. Let's just play India and England all over again. So frustrating as a Black Caps fan. The Black Caps support group is back in session today. There's T-shirts up for sale at the ACC shop. The Sunday game was the culmination of a really disappointing weekend for Black Caps fans. Like Friday night, we had that game in the bag. We bowled so well, and then just came out and we just couldn't. I mean, our batting order is not the best in this T20 series, you could say, missing Mitchell and Williamson, two key players, and it just, like you said, showed the chasm of the depth between the two countries when Australia just really wiped the floor with us.
Yeah, how far do we read into that for the Test series then? Because they are pretty different teams, you know. Like we've got players. A completely different, well, not a completely different squad, but a largely different squad and different players coming back into the team. Do we read too far into that? That starts on Thursday, and it's been sold out for so long. If you're holding that ticket, are you a little bit let down? Do you think this is going to transfer over into that?
I think the one thing that it showed, even in that T20 series, and it's pretty prevalent amongst New Zealand teams for a long time, is we do not play spin very well. So Adam Zampa kind of had his way with us for the whole series, and it doesn't get any easier with Nathan Lyon bowling in that Test series. So, if he kind of gets his tail up, still can't believe he's taken 500 Test wickets. It's just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Williamson back and Daryl Mitchell back, son of a Mitch, it adds a bit of backbone to sorry to steal a
Backbone.
a catchphrase from a radio show not far away from here. It kind of adds a bit of steel to that batting order, which we desperately need. Or else this test could be, even both tests could be over in 3 days, because I don't see a road of a pitch being produced like we've had in the first 2 test matches.
Yeah. The other thing that sort of worries me going into it was the fielding. There have been so many dropped catches in the last few games in this T20 series, but in particular in that game yesterday on Sunday, where we only played 10 overs before the rain got us, and there was still 3 dropped catches. And obviously the ball might have been a bit wet. There might have been a few things going on there, but when you're dropping 3 catches in a T20, that doesn't bode well for your chances in a test. Even that one that we could have won on the Wednesday night down there in Wellington.
Yeah, we blew that.
Glenn Phillips, he got round to the ball, but he put one hand out. He probably could have tried to get the carcass in front of it, but to be fair to him, he was probably the only player in the team who would have even got in front of that ball. But does that put the shits up here when we're going into 5 days of grueling test match cricket against Aussie?
I think we'll be okay, because our test team usually do field quite well. And 2 of the major issues with the fielding over that T20 series, Mark David Chapman and Ish Sodhi, every time you hit the ball to them, you didn't know what was going to happen. Mostly it was going to be bad. Aren't in this team. So I think the level of the fielding should be better. Kane's usually a pretty good fielder, and Mitchell's a good fielder as well. So you'd hope that the disease of dropsies from the T20 series doesn't infect the test team and spread like a zombie virus.
Yeah, we need some sort of vaccination against that, because it is running rampant at the moment. As I said, that test match starts on Thursday. I presume the first ball is going to be at 11, and the ACC will have all your coverage of that and the following test match as well, as we are entering the absolute shit show of sports commentary triple-ups. To pull you behind the curtain, we've got the main studio for the ACC. We do have a secondary studio, but in the next weekend, we're going to have league, Super Rugby, and cricket going on at the same time. So we're going to be about half a studio short. It's going to be an absolute, it's going to be an absolute shit show, even more so than it usually is. How did it go having the cricket on at the same time as the rugby?
I was in the rugby studio, and that was very painful to listen to a couple of Chiefs fans jizz about the Chiefs' mana beating the Crusaders, but it's pretty exciting for the ACC. We've now opened up ACC 2 when we've got those clashes, so I feel like we're becoming a bit of an empire like ESPN. I always remember an ESPN 2 as a kid watching that. Yeah. I kind of ripped off the logo and just put that little squiggly 2 as the logo for the ACC 2 channel.
That's on iHeart, right?
That is on iHeart, yep. So we've opened that up. And like you said, we've got rugby, league, and cricket all kind of rolling up into one. Luckily, the rugby is all on Sky Sport, so if you can't get on the iHeart, you can just watch that along on Sky Sport 9 as well as the league. But yeah, like I said, there's very fucking busy times coming up, and don't forget we've got 3 ACC Opens right bang in the middle of all that, so busy times.
Yeah, plenty going on with the ACC. That was sort of one of the first things that the 2 things that I heard from people when I walked into the Christchurch office this morning. The first was, geez, you'll be selling a few of those Black Cap supporters support group T-shirts. And then the second one was, shit, you guys are busy. It's like, yeah, you're not wrong on either account.
Can you help us? Can you lend us a hand rather than just watch us slowly
drown?
Yeah, slide into insanity.
chuck the bloody life ring off overboard.
No, they're just chucking anchors at you while you're going, geez, you guys are busy as you'd sink to the bottom.
We sure are. All right, time for a very short ad break and we'll be back to digest a weekend of rugby action. Well, Joe Durie, Super Rugby is back in action this week. I feel like the preseason seemed to have gone on for so long. Like I feel like people were overseas, they were in bloody Japan, they were in Ireland, they were all over the shop. And now we are finally underway in earnest and plenty of rugby all across the weekend. As you mentioned before, the rematch of the grand final from last year of the Chiefs versus the Blues, Chiefs versus the Hurricanes. The Chiefs versus the Crusaders, as I flick through the results here. I got that one right.
That's the one.
Forgive me, again, I just had a stag do across the weekend. I have about one brain cell remaining, and I'm using it. I'm riding it into the rocks.
Any good stories from it? Was anyone piss their pants or create a massive scene? Or
We went to, the only one I can share
Peelers? Did you go to the Peelers?
Broadcast. We did not go to the Peelers. We went to the Waimate Rodeo, which there are no Peelers near there. But we did chuck a shirt. One of the guys got the stag a T-shirt made up that said, "Only bullies ride bulls." And as soon as we had walked in there, he was accosted by a group of bull riders who were like, "Oh, you think that's pretty funny, dear? Come down here and make a little protest. Is that what you're going to do?" So that was excellent. They obviously have their own health and safety issues. I tried my hardest to get him across the fence and in there with one of the animals. Yep. They're like, "We're not doing that. This guy's he's gonna get destroyed." So no, that's about probably the only broadcast safe story that I have to share from the weekend's events. But I was an absolute shell of a man yesterday, and I'm about half a shell of a man today. So you'll forgive me if I'm confused my own hometown Crusaders for the Hurricanes and the Blues. But they did lose, unfortunately. Yep. And this is one of the great results, I think, for the Crusaders, because like we saw last year, you don't beat the Crusaders 3 times in a calendar year. And that's what happened to the Chiefs. They beat them twice in pool play. Then when we got to the final, they had used all of their luck up and they weren't going to win the final again. So I think that's what's going to happen again here this year.
Yeah, but I think it's been about 10 years, or even longer than that, 10 years the Crusaders have won the first game of the season. They just don't care. They just, oh yeah, that's cool. That's how you're going to play it. Cool. We'll just note that all down, and then when we come back and play you again, we'll just use everything you used against us against you.
Yeah, 100%. And there is something about the Crusaders, and obviously they've lost a lot of players, Richie Moangas, your Whitelocks, all that sort of stuff. They've also lost Razor. But there's something about if you just stand up 15 Crusaders jerseys, they just play a good brand of footy, and I don't really know what it is. Perhaps it's poaching talent from every other region to the point where they're so depleted that the Crusaders are way out ahead of the pack. But we had our first drama. We talked about this last week on the podcast, that they were introducing, and I feel like not a lot was made of this until it actually happened, but they're introducing the smart mouthguards with the little microchip in there, and that's going to measure head knocks. If you didn't listen to the podcast last week, we had a great Yours Please. Someone sent in a voicemail saying, when you get the head knock and it gets Bluetooth back to the sideline reporters and it says, the head knock was over 70 grams of force, so that's sufficient for him to come off the field. They should put it up on the screen and have the guy, like the darts guy, go, 70!
Yeah.
And then everyone starts cheering, da, 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 and then they take him off the field.
Bit of fan engagement, like...
Yeah.
Let's get it going.
Yeah, 100%. But we had our first incident. I knew this was going to happen. So Anton Leonard-Brown was the first victim of the smart mouthguard. Apparently, across the weekend, they recorded 6,000, what do they call them? Head acceleration incidents.
Right.
And only 8 of them registered as anything, I think. So, ALB had to come off, and this was with about 15 minutes left to go. And there was every chance that he wasn't going to be allowed to come back onto the field. And if the Chiefs had lost that, can you imagine the vitriol we would have had this week? I mean, Lane, McConey, these guys would have been going absolutely apeshit, wouldn't they?
They were furious during the commentary. They're like, "What are you going out for?" I think we managed to distract Lane with just the idea of the darts model for it. And he's like, that kind of got him back on track in a humorous side. But yeah, if this continues on, this is going to be the deciding moment of a World Cup. Someone is going to get taken off. You're going to lose Bowden Barrett for the last 20 minutes or so of a World Cup final because the mouthguard fighter. And what about like deep conspiracy theories of someone like either A, interfering with the signal, the mouthguard signal, and firing off incorrect readings, or sabotage, and the mouthguards start going off and leaking battery acid into players' faces or something like that.
That's a really good point, because how do we know that someone hasn't interfered with the mouthguard, Because who sets those up?
Who's watching the watchman, as they say?
Who is watching the watchman? And obviously they must be waterproof or something, but, what if one of these guys wants to remold it and so he just pours a cup of boiling water over the top of it and fucks it going into the next game? There needs to be an investigation.
There needs to be an investigation. But I overall, I thought like the brand of rugby that was played over the weekend, I was here for 2 of the games, the Highlanders game on Saturday night as well, was really good because the referees just fucked off. They didn't interfere the entire time. They let things play. It was a bit more of a, you always say it, a bit of a vibe, refereeing on vibe like the NRL does. So they were like, let's let that play. It doesn't need me coming in here. The TMO didn't chime in every second of the day just saying, we need to go back for some foul play, blah, blah, blah. It was actually just a bit more old school and just let the players decide the game rather than the referee decide the game, apart from the mouthguard situation. But I think in terms of safety, that's probably the way to go, but whether they can kind of streamline that a bit more.
Yeah, or dial it in. I don't know really how they arrived at the number. I'm sure, they've figured it out, but it's one of those ones where visually to see it happen, you're like, this can't be good for the game. When you're watching it and then all of a sudden your favourite player has to go off, I think that's the hard part to swallow, where even with the TMO, at least you can say, well, yeah, I'd rather he didn't pipe up here, but he was right and that wasn't a try. You can kind of understand that, but this one is like someone just comes out of the clouds and is like, yep, this guy's got to go off for something that you didn't even see, because you also then have to go back through and try and figure out what that head impact must have been, because you don't know. Like the ALB one, he didn't even really know what it was for. Well, that's what he was sort of claiming when they told him he had to go off. But it's like, it's almost this invisible sort of thing that's happening that's taking your favourite player off the field. You're right. It's gonna ruin a World Cup.
So that they do this in the NHL. They have a concussion spotter who's supposedly independent for each team, who sits in the crowd and watches for any head contact. And if a player is deemed to have head contact, they get taken off by the doctor. So it's not even the player deciding himself, I'm a bit injured, I need to go off for blood or whatever.
Yeah.
They call down, and then the trainer has to come and take them off into a quiet room. And it could be any kind of incidental thing like behind the play or anything like that. They're watching everything. And it's happened to goalies quite a lot, because the goalies are obviously in the goal. They get incidental head contact with the players standing in front of them or running into them, stuff like that, which is a major issue for NHL, because your goalie basically is the main player that keeps you winning or losing the game.
Yeah.
And if you've got a starting goalie who, with 10 minutes to go in the game, has to go off for this head assessment, and then you have to bring a cold goalie off the bench into the net with no warm-up. They don't get any warm-up. They get to stretch a little bit, but there's no like, hey, it takes 5 or 10 shots to get you feeling the puck and stuff. And so that's had major issues in the NHL already, and you can see that kind of this eye in the sky just calling down and going, right, get this guy off. He's hit the 70 level because some team has Rusty. It'll be Rusty Erasmus, I bet you. He is gonna, instead of the fucking light system, he's gonna use the mouthguard system. He'll be firing down some kind of radiation or radio waves to fire off the All Blacks mouthguards. Yeah,
well, that's a great point, because obviously we've played the audio on this podcast before of his pre-game speeches, and it's basically just, you must fuck them up. You must fuck them up. Because how it works, the mouthguard is, it's got an accelerometer in it, similar to your phone. It's how your phone knows if you've tilted it up or down or whatever. I watched a bit of the breakdown, and we will break down the breakdown later on. I think Mills Muliaina was talking about if he had if someone made a breakaway and he's at fullback, someone's running at him, he'd start biting down on his mouth guard to try and get taken off so that he didn't have to make the tackle. That's not how it works. It works by movement. So it's like a rapid acceleration of your head. Well, that can happen to you if you get tackled, from a legal position. It doesn't have to be a shoulder to the head.
So you could just start headbanging, like just swinging your head up and down. If someone's on a breakaway into the corner, you just and they're like, oh, look, we've got to stop the game. This guy's having accelerator.
He's having a stroke. he's you just go full mosh pit and then you get to go off. Or alternatively, you can just fuck someone up and have their head whip, and then that's enough to get them set off, which I suppose is probably enough to give them a concussion as well. But I don't know. It's going to be very interesting how this one plays out. We'll move on to one of the other games. The Blues humped the Drua 34-10, but I thought the best part about this game was Semenov Stadium. First off, shout out to Semenov Stadium, one of the great names in sports. And it looked amazing. And I think that we've been calling for a bit more of this for quite a while now, but rugby needs to take these games to the regions. Whenever one of these games is played in a smaller region, it packs out, because this is the chance for you to go down and see your team without having to travel. You can sleep in your own bed that same night. And they always sell out. I think there are about 10,000 people there, and it looked incredible. Why don't Super Rugby take more games, particularly like the teams that have the massive stadiums, Auckland and Wellington? Why don't they take them out to more of the regions?
Money, Manaia. It's money.
Yeah,
so they think they've got all this money coming in. Well, they've obviously paid for the rights, so they need to get them into these bigger stadiums, even though no one turns up. No one will turn up to the Hurricanes in Wellington this week if they play there.
No.
I would love it as well. Like the Crusaders should play in Nelson or up north in Marlborough or somewhere like that, Blenheim. Timaru, yep. Even head over to the West Coast, maybe playing Greymouth. Probably not. I guess the Highlanders should play more games down in
Invercargill. They played one last year. It was excellent.
Was that the game that the toasty caught on fire and they had to call the game off, or was that the year before?
That was an NPC game where they where the cheese roll burned in the toaster and they had to evacuate the stand and stop the game, which is the most Southland thing that's ever happened. Yeah. But no,
I agree. I mean, get it out of the big stadiums, or we just build these nice rugby stadiums which are 15 to 18,000.
Yeah.
Fill them up with fans, rather than watching on TV.
Yeah.
These empty bullshit stadiums that no one wants to go to.
Yeah, 100%. While I was down in the Stag do, the next day we were actually able to go around to the Stag's parents' house, and I had a quick yarn to his mum. Shout out to Odette. She was watching a couple of the Super Rugby games last year, and she's like, no one's in the stands. And the commentators are saying, oh, no one likes to go out to live events anymore because they can stay in the comfort of their home. She's like, that's bullshit, because people are still going to concerts. The Foo Fighters can pack out a stadium. Queens of the Stone Age can pack out a stadium. So people still like going to these things. And she just said, make it a full, just make it a whole experience the whole time. Just put a show on at halftime like the bloody Super Bowl. Put on, entertainment out in the stands. She said she went to a cycling event where they had like strobe lights and all this sort of thing going on, and it was just exciting the entire time. And my point is, if my mate's mum knows that, how does New Zealand Rugby not know that? And how come nothing's being done about that kind of thing?
It's the arrogance of the we've had it our own way for so long.
Yeah.
Rugby union. They didn't need to do anything because people loved rugby and they would just keep coming and coming and coming. And now that there is some kind of give me something more, I'm not just going to turn up because I'm meant to turn up, and that's how it's always been. They're just a little bit behind. People will go to something if it is entertaining and it is a show. For rugby for too long was just, here's the game, shut up, sit down, get your hot dog, go home.
Yeah.
Now you need something more like a band playing beforehand or a band playing afterwards. So a bit of a pre or post game party, or it would never happen in New Zealand, but like tailgating, get people on the number 2 ground and get them in with their cars and just get people having a good time in the afternoon, and then, like a bit more entertainment going on during the game rather than just the same old DJ A-hole playing terrible music in between the breaks.
That's right, because it needs to be, I think, so much of a show that even if you're not into rugby, it's worth going to.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
going to be, that's a night out. That's exactly what it needs to be. Because that's how you're going to get people back on the bus for rugby, you know, because there are a certain amount of people who aren't that big of fans of watching the game itself. But that's true of most sports. But it's still worth, obviously America do a great job of it. They got the numbers and they got the money to do it. But we can do far cooler shit here than what we are doing, and that's how you get the casual fan back involved again. Get the bloody kids along, get the whole family along, because it's a night out, like you say. But I don't know, as it stands, we just get in there, sit down, shut up, and watch it, and we do that because we are super fans. And Joe, 2 Degrees are looking for the biggest super fan. That's a segue, by the way, for those of you studying broadcasting.
That's a Hall of Fame segue. I would, they should teach that in broadcasting school.
That's exactly what they'll do. As we get into the start of the Super Rugby Pacific season for 2024, our mates at 2 Degrees are on the hunt to find New Zealand's super team super fan. If you're a massive fan of your super team since ages ago, if you know all the players' nicknames, you wear your supporters kit, if you sit there in the absolutely pouring rain when it's freezing cold down there at whatever stadium it is that you support your team, you might be the super fan that they're looking for. So get in the draw to win an epic VIP game day experience. We're talking a stadium tour with some of your favourite players. By entering yourself as a super fan on the 2 Degrees website, just text FAN to 3236. That's FAN to 3236. We'll send you back the link and you can enter there. And I suggest that you do that while we take a quick break, and we'll be back to break down the breakdown. All right, Joe Durie, this is one of my favourite segments. It's called Breakdown the Breakdown. This is where we break down things that are happening in the mainstream sporting media. And luckily for us, the breakdown is back on your earwaves, so we can actually break down
Thank
what
God.
they're talking about on the breakdown. I know you've been waiting for a long time.
Nothing gets me going more than the guy from Up talking about rugby.
Well, the guy from Up has issued his 10 commandments to World Rugby. Sir John Kirwan's 10 commandments. They're on the rundown in front of you. The first one's a very administrative one. It says one nation, one vote. I'm not going to go into what that means, but it's more to do with how World Rugby administers things.
It sounds a little bit Trumpy to me.
Sounds like it should be on the platform, you reckon? One nation, one vote. The second commandment, set pieces should be 1 minute max. I think we're all on board with that.
Yep.
Third one, 3 consecutive penalties and your team concedes 1 point. I don't like that.
No, because, again, that's so subjective by the referee. Like, sometimes the referee will give 3 penalties like that for those little, depending on how he's feeling on the day on the infringements. And then, like, that can really decide a game.
And what happens if you, as a ref, have given away 2 penalties already, and then there's one where you're like, could penalise them, might not. I really don't want that to be the reason that this team loses this game. And then you swallow the whistle and the team gets away with a penalty. You know, I think there's a few flow-on effects from that. And the other thing is, if your team wins by that method, by 1 point because of that, what's the highlight?
There's no way in hell that a referee is going to give away a 3rd consecutive penalty knowing that it's going to give a point to the team. Say the game's tied. Yeah. Like, there's no way the referee's going to go, oh, look, hey, that's 3 penalties in a row. Oh, you have another point now. Oh, you won the game. Oh, that's done.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
What happens if you get a point? Does then the game, you go back to halftime for halfway for a restart? Like, what is that's a, you pulled that out of your ass, JK. That's stupid.
That's a half-baked sports joke. Moving on to the next one. He wants to get rid of the mark.
Yep, agree.
So the catcher has to move 2 metres before being tackled. So I guess, is he saying, like in the NFL, you can't just hammer someone who's catching a high ball in the 22. You have to allow them to take a step or two? Is that what do you think he's getting at there?
I guess so, but that could be massively exploited, saying every time you catch the ball, you just run backwards. And then no one can...
Yeah.
Is that moving forward or backwards?
Or if you don't take
sideways?
2 steps, then what? They just have to stand there and wait for you to do it? I don't know.
You just pass the ball and then you have a free... That's basically a mark anyway.
What is the idea behind the mark?
I don't know. It's one of those oldie kind of rugby rules where... Oh, that's a good catch, sir. Good catch, sir. Yes, take a mark.
Yeah. It is. It is one of those ridiculous rules that's so hard to explain. Like if the aliens came down and we had to explain rugby to them, I couldn't explain the mark. I guess if you wanted to say stop like bombs, but this is the thing. It kind of penalises like the cross kick as a way of scoring a try. Because if you get it wrong, the other team gets a mark and they get out of jail.
Yeah,
but that's exactly what we want.
Yeah, NRL moved it to you can only do it in, I guess,
In
a
goal.
mark is an in goal, right? Which kind of makes sense because you're penalised for kicking it too deep, so you want to kick it in play.
Well,
So-
it just because if that rule wasn't there, you could pin a team down on their try line for an hour if you wanted to, because every time you kick it to them, you tackle them in there and then you're back again, So it just tips the balance back in favour of the defending team a little bit, makes it a bit more jeopardy for trying those tactics.
Yep.
But I don't understand why you should be allowed 22 metres to do that as well.
Make it just within they've got the 10 metre line, so.
I think even just the in goal will be fine.
Yeah.
This next one is my favourite one that he's come up with. It's no TMO unless asked for by the referee. This is how it was when the TMO first came in, and now it's just getting out of control.
Well, that's how it should be. The eye in the sky wounder who wasn't invited to the party but wants to get involved, piss off.
Yeah.
The referee should only be, unless, and he goes into it later on with Captain's Challenge, the referee should decide, I didn't see that properly, I need some help, rather than old mate and jerking off to the screen up above, just chiming in.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the next one is 2 captain's challenges per game. As it stands, I think they get 1, and if it's successful, they get to keep it. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
So then 2 captain's challenges. I don't mind that, but I mean, I guess that's just another stoppage in play, the captain's challenge.
Yeah. Why don't you just go one and a half, maybe?
Yeah, I suppose. The use it call, when a maul stops and the referee says use it, he's saying it should, play must continue immediately, otherwise it's a turnover. I don't mind that either. I think we all agree that mauls are out of control these days.
Yep. Yep.
The next one, no red cards, everything on report. The only retort to that would be, what if someone punched another guy in the head, and then, but JK said he was talking to the refs. I don't know if he talked to all of them. He asked a couple of refs.
Some of his best mates are refs.
Some of his best mates are refs. And he asked them, when was the last time they saw something genuinely like unprofessional, like a punch thrown? Because you never see that anymore. And they said it was 2019 was the last time they saw it. So he's like, look, anything other than kicking someone in the teeth, it's just on report and we play on. Like the NRL.
Or you go to the bin, like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Yellow card equals points deduction. So taking a couple of points off every time someone gets a yellow card. I don't know about that. Again, I'd feel hard done by as a fan.
No, and I think the 10 minutes for a yellow card is too long.
Yep.
It's
5 minutes?
Yeah, it's far too much of the game, so go 5 minutes. And
then,
let's go full NHL on it. You get a try scored against you, your player comes out of the bin.
Yes. Yep, I completely agree with that. Because again, you're not punishing the fans.
No, exactly.
You're punishing the player or the team. And yeah, like you say, it does work. That's the penalty for the infringement that your player made.
You got scored against. Here, your guy comes out now.
That's right, yeah.
And also, you could go another way. You could run it as a jailbreak. Now, they've started doing this in the PWHL. They don't have it in the NHL. If you are killing a penalty, and obviously if you get scored against you, your person comes out of the box. If you score while you're short-handed, your person also comes out of the box. So it kind of rewards you for still playing attack or attacking while you're a person down.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Say you have got a guy in the yellow card bin for 5 minutes. You're pinned down in your own end, but you turn the ball over, and then rather than just kicking it away, you attack, you go and score, your person comes out of the sim bin.
I'm a big fan of the jailbreak idea. I think that's a brilliant way to get. But not that teams really park the bus too much when there's a player in the bin. They'll kill time for sure.
Yeah.
But they will still kind of attack. But you're right. Instead of taking a kick, they may actually just have a white hot crack. Final 2 points here while we're breaking down the breakdown. Injured players can return within 7 minutes. If they're taken off the field and then they decide actually they're not hurt, they can come back on.
Why 7 minutes?
I don't know.
An arbitrary kind of number that he's picked out there.
It's just his favourite. Well, I mean, why is the 22 metre line at the 22 metre line? Is that the most ridiculous thing that rugby's ever done? I don't know. I'm sure that JK could explain it if he needed to. And then finally, 1 point drop goal. I like that as well. I think the drop goal's overvalued in rugby union. It shouldn't be, 2 drop goals shouldn't be worth more than a try. And we all just want to see tries. So the more that we can tip the balance in that favour, the better, I think.
Yep, I agree.
All right, well, that was the breakdown for another week. Now, the National Rugby League has started as well, Joe. The Panthers lost the World Club Championship to Wigan on a controversial last try, which is a huge...
Very controversial. I read about this. Very, very controversial.
This is one of those ones that happens so often in both codes where the ball is being placed down over the line and there's no clear camera angle on it, and it's like... Was it placed down? When was it placed down? Was it placed down initially before the line? Then was it over the line? Was it on the line? And so often you see these ones and it's like, well, you can tell that he definitely put that down on the ground, but because there's no clear angle on it, you're not allowed to award it, or do you award it because it's clear on the available evidence that is what he did? I don't know. All I know is thank fuck they lost that, because I think that's a huge omen. The three-peat was exciting. It was very cool. The grand final, Nathan Cleary basically single-handedly winning that and coming from behind to win that one. Exciting. But I think we're done with the Panthers as a league. We want to move on from that. And if ever, obviously we say this every year, but this year is our year, and we've got our best chance of winning the title that I think we've had for a long, long time. So I'm very happy about this, that the Panthers have lost the World Club Championship. They didn't need that wind in their sails, I think.
No, it's time to turn that Panther over and just gut its belly, kill it.
Yeah, skin it, make a rug out of it, put it on the floor. The Broncos won the preseason challenge, whatever the hell that is. I don't know.
What is that?
So I don't know. You play 2 games in your preseason, and to try and make it a bit more competitive, they've decided to call it the preseason challenge.
Why?
I know, because this is also the preseason challenge is like, you got 28 guys suiting up for a game. There are unlimited interchanges. There's players coming off, coming on, not playing the whole game, blah, blah, blah. You can't read too far into these games. So I don't really understand. Every competition has tried to do this. In the NBL, they do it. I forget what they call it, but it's got a funky name.
Did they hold a parade? Did the people of Brisbane fucking get absolutely loose and turn some cars over and have a bender?
Yeah. If ever there was I tell you what, if the Warriors win it, we're going on a bender.
Yeah.
If the Warriors ever win the preseason challenge. But the Warriors did win their own game, 34-22 against the Dolphins. Like I say, you can't read too far into these things, but tough week for Wayne Bennett. First of all, he loses out on the Kiwis gig to Stacey Jones, and then he loses to the Warriors. So he's going to be really hating New Zealand at the moment. This team, Joe Durie, gives me an absolute throbber, this Warriors team. RTS looks absolutely incredible. He's so hot, and he's also just skinning dudes, and people are talking so much about, how's he going to readjust back to rugby league? It's not like he was off building scaffolding for a couple of years. He was playing for the fucking All Blacks.
He wasn't playing. He was in doing mushy shakes in Vietnam or in Bali, yeah.
Yeah, no, he was out there playing for the All Blacks. So I don't know. I hope that these first 2 games have just put everyone to rest as to how he's going to go when he comes back. He's going to be fucking incredible. Webby was forced to play him at fullback because Tane Tuapiki had a bit of a corked thigh, and I think maybe some sort of lower back issue as well. So he was back in there in his fullback role, and he looked incredible as soon as he did that.
Well, he's not going to play him there, though. He's not going to play him there. I'm not going to play him there. I'm not going to play him there.
I don't. That's such a, it's a real clickbaity headline. Obviously,
There's
the journos keep
14,000 articles about it. Like, he's not going to play him there. No, he's not going to play him there. Just play him there. Play him there. If you've got an injury, play him there.
Yeah, well, and they did, but it's like he's got to come back into the team. He's got to figure out, we're not just the Warriors of old. We're actually going to have a crack this year. And I think they just need as many reps as possible with him at centre. But you're right, don't overthink it. If we need a fullback to fill in, put him there, because Chance isn't going to be back for at least the first week or 2. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think one of the biggest problems that we had from a fan base perspective is actually one of our biggest assets, and that's our depth. We've got so many players that we can't fit them all on the field. We've got 3 first-class number 6s. We've got 3 first-class second rowers, and so much so that we've actually had to turn one into a prop in Mitch Barnett. We've now got Kirk Capewell on one edge. Jackson Ford looks like he's going to start on the other. And then Marata Niukore is now coming off the bench in the middle, and he looks fucking incredible when he's doing that. I can't imagine anything scarier than having just played 60 minutes of a rugby league match, and then Marata Niukore comes onto the field, and I've now got to contend with this guy. It's an absolute nightmare. But I was worried.
This is where we need to. This is where we need trades. So
Yeah.
imagine if there was a trade you can make. I don't know if you want to have a think about it before tomorrow's episode, or we put it out to the Agenda fans or the Mad Monday fans. What would be the trade that you would make for this Warriors team with the depth that we've got in half and in the forward pack in the second row?
That's a great idea because we're probably a prop short. I'm actually quite happy that Braden Hamlin-Uele didn't sign with us and re-signed with the Sharks. I don't know if we needed to be spending $1 million on him, but that's a great idea. If we've got all of this stock, I feel like if any league's going to do it, it's going to be the NRL. Bring in a draft and trade system. We've been talking about this for so long. Mm-hmm. It would be a great equaliser for us because all of our best talent gets poached by the schools over in Australia and the development systems over there. And that'd be a great equaliser to be like, yeah, go over, take your scholarship, play mean. And then when you become good,
then we'll trade for you and get you back.
We'll draft you because up until recently, we would have had a fair few first-round draft picks. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. I think that we've got so many sixes, so many second rowers that we could definitely trade. So get in touch with us on the talkback function on iHeartRadio. Some people are sending them in on the main ACC feed. Some people are sending them in on the podcast thing. Either or, we'll find them.
We don't care.
Send them through. We don't care. The only other thing I had to say about the Warriors is I did have a little bit of a worry about second year syndrome. Like after you have a gangbusters year, the next year you can sometimes fizzle out a little bit. It happened to the Cowboys just last year. But I think that the thing that's going to stop that is, one, there's so much hype around the Warriors here in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And two, we've brought in some new players that I think that's just enough of a shake-up to avoid that second-year syndrome. You know, for anyone who is going to get a little bit worn out or whatever, you just look over at RTS absolutely smacking someone on defense or skinning someone with the ball in hand, and you're like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah, no matter how good your team is, you kind of need about a 10% turnover each year just to add a bit of fresh blood and, just a bit more of an essence, a craving to succeed a bit more. Bring people in who haven't won or have had a lot of success to help drive the team forward.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that'll do it for the National Rugby League chat. By the way, for those of you who've been asking, the Mad Monday podcast will be back this week, so keep your eye on socials and make sure that you subscribed to that if you're not already. And on to some football news. Joe, we need to get someone on to talk about the Wellington Phoenix because we are horribly underqualified. But I've come across a story from over in the UK where players at the community-owned football club Camden and Islington United decided to boycott their Sunday Wembley Cup semi-final when they found out the name of their opponents, Munter Hunters FC. Apparently over in the UK, Munter is a derogatory term for someone who is unattractive and is typically targeted at women. Is Munter Hunters FC one of the greatest sporting names you've ever heard of?
Well, I think you're in trouble because isn't your Mad Monday fantasy league
oh my god,
the Mad Monday Munters?
The Mad Monday Munters group, yeah, it is.
So you guys are just pieces of shit. You're derogatory towards women, and I think you need to immediately change that name because it's a disgrace.
All right, we're going to have to knock that one on the head. I just thought that was one of the funniest stories I've seen because their logo is just MHFC, so people were like,
so
oh,
good.
yeah.
So good. And that news article was so good as well because as you were watching it, you're like, oh, jeez, what's the name? Because they don't say it until right at the end.
Yeah.
And it's the Munter Hunters FC. And we're like, oh, God, that is so good. Like,
Munter Hunters FC.
We were talking about this in the office. Like, what about the horrific names of like Last Man Stands teams that are out there, of the teams that are in the Kiwi Pong World Series every year? Munta Hunters FC is basically like church. It's like
You can tell your mum.
It's the safest name compared to the other ones that are out there.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, maybe we're going to get cancelled this year for the Mad Monday Munters group, which is going to be live again this year. We will get the code out for you this week so that you can join that ahead of the first round of the NRL. Just quickly, before we knock this thing on the head, Joe, we have a talkback function available to you, as we said before. Anytime you want to hit that little microphone button on the iHeartRadio app, send us a message, you can. We call it Yours Please.
Yours, please. Brought to you by Leader, home of the lasagna topper.
Just a couple of quick ones to mop up from the weekend sporting action. We had 2 to get through. First caller, yours, please.
Good morning, all. I'd like to thank you for coming to this morning's meeting at the Black Caps Supporter Support Group. I'll start us off and we'll go around the circle. My name is Blake, and I have been deeply hurt by the Black Caps. Lane?
No Lane here today. He's too sad to make it to the meeting.
Yeah, he didn't even come into work today.
He didn't even come into work. He obviously couldn't even make it into the Black Caps Supporters Support Group. But my name is Manaia, and I've also been deeply hurt by the Black Caps. I know that things will be better. It'll be different this next time. But yeah, thank you.
My name is Joe, and I've been hurt by the Black Caps, and
thanks, Joe.
He's going to change. He's going to change.
It's just when it's good, it's so good. And I just know that, it's going to get back to that.
When he's got the guitar and he's singing and the mates are around, he's having a good time, everything's good.
But every now and then when he drops 3 catches and 10 overs, it's just, it can be tough. Second caller, yours, please. I think that sums up how everyone felt about the cricket over the last few days. All right, let's knock this one on the head. That'll do us for a Monday edition of the Agenda podcast, and we will see you tomorrow for a Tuesday wrap-up of all of the sporting news and stories and headlines. We'll see you then. Thank you very much, Joe Durie.
You've been listening to the ACC's Agenda podcast. For more episodes, subscribe on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.